of Raquel Rolnik, who you already know and has been introduced before. For those that were not here in the morning, Raquel is an architect and planner, was former director of strategic planning in the city of São Paulo, is also an advisor to the city of Santo André at the moment, and is the director of the postgraduate program in the School of Architecture and Urbanism in the University of Campinas in São Paulo. Also participating in the session, the second person to present today, is Celso Daniel. Celso Daniel is the mayor of the city of Santo André, is a professor at the Department of Economics in the Catholic University of São Paulo, is a professor at the Department of Social Sciences in the Getúlio Vargas Foundation in São Paulo, and is also the director of the Economic Development Agency of the Greater ABC region in São Paulo. Finally, we will have the presentation by Jordi Borja. Jordi is a sociologist, geographer, urban planner, political scientist, one of the professionals that Ronaldo talked about before. The vice deputy mayor of Barcelona until '95. Is the manager of urban technology consulting, and has been actively involved in works in Europe and in Latin America. Jorge is also a very distinguished academic, an academic doublé of politician who has published extensively, and is the author of a book recently published, I think it was last year in Britain, called The Local and the Global, jointly written with Manuel Castells. And in this panel, we'll have Michael Edwards as the commentator, in the difficult role of commentator, as the previous commentators already indicated. Michael is a senior lecturer at the University College, at the Bartlett School of Architecture and Planning. He has been involved quite actively in issues of planning in Britain and in Europe. He's an urban and property economist, and with particular experience in the field of project appraisal, economic strategies, and forecasting for localities. So we will start with Raquel Rolnik, and then after Raquel, we will show for a few minutes a video of Santo André, and in particular of a current plan for Santo André, which involves the participation of 4 very distinguished architects, 3 from Europe and 1 from São Paulo. Cândido Malta, who is also participating in the symposium and will be talking tomorrow. Juan Busquets, who is here as well from Barcelona, Potsdam Park, and Eduardo Leira. And so that's a short video that gives a sense of what is going on now in Santo André, in particular in relation to that project and that plan. And then Celso Daniel will make his presentation. Okay, Raquel.
I was asked to talk a little bit about the experience we had during the PT, the Workers' Party administration in the city of São Paulo, which was from 1989 to 1992. And my main point here, following what I said in the morning, is that can we face territorial exclusion using planning, urban planning tools? Is that possible? Is that feasible? Does planning has a role? I tried to show in the morning how much plans, and especially a strategy of urban regulations using zoning, has a lot to do in the history of São Paulo with the reproduction of territorial exclusion. how much all the conceptions which are present in the urban regulation strategy in São Paulo are related directly with the logic of formal markets. It's almost a cartography of the contracts and the definitions made within the formal market. And it's a kind of rule in order to solve conflicts within the formal market, which in São Paulo have to do with the center southwestern portion of the city. So when Luiza Erundina, the mayor, that she came from the Brazilian Northeast, and she was linked as a past, as a politician, with social movements and with grassroots community groups. So what she was proposing was a break in the urban policies that had been practiced over 1 century, I would say. Both from the point of view of defining investment priorities, so the idea during Luiza Erundina administration was inversion of priorities, inversão de prioridades, investing in the periphery rather than in the center southwestern part of the city. She gave priority to social areas, above all housing, healthcare, education, public transportation, instead of large public works, especially roads, constructions, highways, and so far. She opened spaces for political dialogue and negotiation in the decision-making process in the city, organizing councils and forums where organizations, entities, and individuals involved with the sector or a territory shared decision-making with the government. Concerning urban planning, which was not a priority of the Erundina government, a break with the past was also attempted. Required by the Federal Constitution of '88 to construct a new master plan for the city planners dreamed that it was possible to establish new rules of the game through a wide process of public discussion in the city involving the actors that produce it and dispute urban space. They would be rules based on real city and not an abstract and ideal model. So the starting point was to be very clear for the whole city that the irregular city, shanty towns, slums and tenements, irregular parceling, and in general precarious housing, self-help precarious housing, were 67% of the population of the city. So the main target of planning should be that and not the 30% formal. These data, they are wrong because they were made before the census of '91. So the total population was a projection of the population in 1980. Indeed, the population now in 1990 is 10 million, because what we didn't know by that time is that the demographic growth would slow down so dramatically in the 80s. Now we know. So, but this data was the data mobilized during that period. But I can tell you that the 67% is okay. The numbers, the total numbers, it's not that important. So the point is that the logic, the rhythm, the spatial organization of popular territories were never a base for planning and for urban regulations. That's why they were always deviant. And they have an economic logic, they have a spatial logic, and to be more specific in terms of more clear terms. For instance, the practice, the general practice of the periphery in São Paulo is what we call multi-familiar housing, horizontal multi-familiar housing. 3, 4 families in one parcel and not in a high-rise. Okay? So, this is the base of building the periphery. There is no zone in the whole zoning code of São Paulo which permit multi-familiar horizontal housing. So, all the idea of controlling the city is totally separate from the real practice from popular neighborhoods, and that was the point that I was trying to show you in the morning. So that was one of the main ideas, to reinvent the rule of the game in a way that the basic rule of the city should be a rule to intervene in the real production of the real city, and not to intervene in the 30% formal city. So the idea was to incorporate heterogeneity, transformation, and conflict as positive values, to make very clear that the city was conflict, instead of taking planning as a technical sphere totally disconnected from politics. So the idea was to politicize planning and to show how much planning decisions were totally political. And it was very important to make it very explicit. And rules that would liberate the city from legislation that protected them, protected reserved markets, that designed invisible walls, and which assumed the logic and rhythm of the production of popular settlements as an integral part of the city. Rules which open access to job opportunities, consumption, and real estate investment to a large number of people, discongesting the city and its markets. Just to say you another example, which is very apparently very good in terms of urban regulations. One of the zones that we have in São Paulo, which is it covers more than 70% of São Paulo territory, is a zone which is the FAR is 1. You can build just one time the area of the land. But if you have a bigger parcel, minimum 20 meters by 20 meters, or a big parcel, and if you use only half of the parcel and leave empty the rest, you can build 2 times the width of the parcel, which means simply transferring income and rent from the poorer to the richer, because small investors who have only one plot with 10 meters or 5 meters can build only one time. But then when you have a construction company coming and buying several parcels, then the construction company can build 2 times. Of course, the reason is urbanistic. Occupying less parts of the lot will mean more light, more air, more empty space, but the effect of that in the market is very perverse. It's transferring rent from the poor to the rich. So the whole idea was how to retake this idea of the intervention of urban regulations in the market, because we know that this is a big intervention in the market, in order to democratize the market. or include more opportunities for more people rather than concentrating opportunities for few people. That was the whole idea. These concepts broke with the logic of keeping out the poor and protecting the rich within the Southwest, and counter the creation of dormitory neighborhoods and employment neighborhoods, largely responsible for the city environmental disasters, and sought to build a less segregated city. So I don't have much time to explain the tools, the urban tools that we had proposed. But basically the idea, this is the area in yellow where cities are paved in the city of São Paulo in 1989. This is the area of the city where the streets are lighted. These are the areas where the favelas are. The area served by sewage system, sanitation, irregular parceling is the yellow dots here, and flood areas. So the basic conception was to take the best urbanized areas, which are the areas in which the infrastructure is at least complete, everything, water, light, and everything, which are, as I demonstrate to you in this morning, that they have been depopulated. So the whole idea was to populate those areas, or to open those areas to lower income markets. Of course, this doesn't mean to the people who are living in slums, because this is a very, very, very low income, but to people who are living perhaps in a self-built house in the periphery, owned, and who paid a lot for that also. So the whole strategy was to do that, to open, to repopulate those areas, to establish one single FAR for the whole urban area, and not differentiate the FAR, and to sell instead of to give a higher FAR for those who wanted to build more than one time, and giving this exceeding FAR for free for any low-income housing in those areas. Also, a general rule of occupying the city that would consider basically the geography, the topography, the environmental characteristics of São Paulo. The yellow part are flood areas, low areas, and the areas, the brown areas are high declivity. So the idea was to differentiate occupation in different areas, and also to design a special zoning, social interest zonings, who is all the spots, the red, orange, and yellow spots. And the idea of special interest zoning was the idea of having parts of the city liberated from the general zoning, where the real way of occupying those places could be inscribed in terms of regulation after an urbanization project. So the idea was to open the regulations to the heterogeneity of the city. So, light. Just to tell you that it's more complex than that, but those were the basic ideas. The proposed new regulation strategy was never voted by the city council, in which the mayor didn't have the majority. Just to try to understand that this is one of the reasons why, this is not the only reason, but also the reason that in a political situation where the mayor didn't have the majority, this topic was not elected by the city as the key topic to fight for. So this is also had to do. Then, but it was important, nevertheless, to rephrase the agenda, in order to rephrase the agenda of planning and the language of planning, as well as to put these questions in the public debate. I can tell you that the public debate was never the same after that proposition, and that also had influenced many other cities in Brazil who really did, under better political conditions, a big regulation reform. And this is a wave in Brazil, and now we are doing the first evaluations of the impacts of those changes with very interesting results, like social interest zoning. And this is something that is really developed in Brazil and with interesting outcomes. Looking back now, 10 years later, under a critical position that I have on my own work and involvement, I can see now, which I couldn't see by that time, how much regulation reforms are important but totally insufficient in order to change totally the pattern of city organization. And not only taking, of course, the necessity of investing in the periphery, supplying basic infrastructure, urbanizing slums. This is also totally insufficient, because doesn't turn down the structure of capital and urban concentration in the city. So what is lacking? I think now that it's important to dispute the big projects, the big works, the big investments in the city, the big urban projects. It's important to break down, in terms of São Paulo, our Berlin Wall, which means to generate an alternative centrality which should be a centrality from the center to the southeast, because a new center from the city center to the southeast in the Tamanduateí Valley, where industry was established in the beginning of the century, and the industry is not there anymore, could be a center, a centrality for the whole southeast and eastern part of the metropolitan region, ameliorating tremendously the overall conditions of this part of the city. So using the space left by the closed down industry is an opportunity, it's an urban opportunity to open this part of the city as a new centrality. But which centrality? Of big enterprises, gated community? No, a centrality based on public space, spaces for interaction, a lot of open spaces, green areas, sport and leisure areas, free for the people who live in the southeast and the eastern part of the city, who need not only jobs and water and paved street, but urban quality, which only a project with concentrated capital can give it. So this idea is also the idea, one of the ideas and one of the reasons why we are working in Santo André, which is brought here in green, which is the end of this valley. We started here from the end through the center, basically because a political reason. here in Santo André, we have a political will to do that, which is totally lacking in São Paulo now. Thank you.
The Tamanduá Axis Project. Transformations in the world economy have reached Brazil intensively. The bigger cities, the utmost expression of an intense process of urbanization, had their functions quickly altered. That's also a city that belongs to the São Paulo metropolitan area, along with 7 other cities that make up the industrial network in the southeast skirts of the metropolis. Santo André has witnessed a decrease in its industrial activities. Its territory has become disorganized, with the withdrawal of industries, a decreasing population in the inner city areas, and the growth of its outskirts. But this critical profile can also be faced as an opportunity for change. Santo André developed itself from the Santos Jundiaí Railroad, which connected Santos, Brazil's most important harbor, with the capital, São Paulo, which received immigrants from Mediterranean Europe. The distance was short, about 60 kilometers, but it was hard to overcome Serra do Mar to reach the plateau. All of the Tamanduá Valley was followed by the railroad track. And it was along this railway that the first industrialization cycle in São Paulo occurred throughout the 20s, 30s, and 40s. The obsolescence of the area began along with the railroad, which also progressively lost its position to the transportation on tires. In the last 20 years, this decline has increased because of industrial restructuring, which has implied a loss of industrial employment. For this reason, the Tamanduá Valley is going through a period of urban decadence, with the appearance of large pieces of vacant or subutilized land. The occupation of some pieces of land by commercial centers reactivates the area, which nevertheless is still fragmented, and in need of an overall urban framework which can organize the land and improve the quality of life. It's within this context of territorial restructuring that the municipality of Santo André is designing a large project for a 700 hectares piece of land with 8 kilometers in length and up to 700 meters in width. This piece of land, which is along the Tamanduá River, is served by the Estado Avenue and the railroad, which with little investment can be transformed into a surface train. The idea is to build a new space of metropolitan centrality. This new centrality will represent an alternative to the present metropolitan centralities, like the Historic Center, the Paulista Avenue, the Bahini Avenue. Fully active, these areas of metropolitan importance have become overcrowded, expensive, and with little available space. The introduction of this centrality will favor the implementation of a polycentric metropolis, offering updated infrastructure with a high quality of life.
A criação de uma nova centralidade metropolitana no eixo Tamanduá-TI é um imenso desafio que nós do governo municipal estamos assumindo com todo vigor. E temos convicção de que a iniciativa privada, a comunidade de Santo André, da região do Grande ABC, metropolitana, em conjunto com o governo do Estado e o governo federal, teremos todos juntos condição de colocá-la realmente em prática. Não se trata apenas de uma reformulação urbana de grande porte. Trata-se de garantir espaço e oportunidade para a geração de emprego no terciário avançado, o que significa, portanto, algo que tem um sentido social da mais alta importância para Santo André e para a região do Grande ABC.
In this respect, The Tamandurate-E axis for this position counts for several favorable aspects. First, its position, for it belongs to a radial highway in the metropolis. Second, its accessibility, reinforced by its location near the railway. And third, the availability of large pieces of land, offering the possibility of a new urban design with large tracts of open space. The opportunity of a highway ring, promised by the state government, will enable the access to the airports and other highways to the metropolis.
Para asegurar que el área de Avenida de los Estados pueda realmente llegar a ser ese área de centralidad metropolitana, necesitamos una vía que pueda ser parte del anel perimetral que nunca se ha llegado a construir, pero ahora considerado como diagonal de ABC. Ese arco del anel perimetral que nunca se ha hecho, para que realmente podamos entrar como puerta al área de Avenida de los Estados y no como final desde el centro de São Paulo.
The municipality has hired 4 renowned urban design teams. One of them was elaborated by a Brazilian office, and the others by mixed teams coordinated by European architects, working together with Brazilians.
Yo creo que en Europa, cuando vemos los ejemplos en Alemania o en Holanda, en el caso de Rotterdam, donde el mismo Barcelona, Lisboa, lugares en donde la actividad industrial desapareció. Encontrar un proceso de transformación apoyado con la iniciativa del sector público que permita, establezca unas reglas de juego claras, que permita la incorporación del sector privado con iniciativas muy distintas. Hoy en día conocemos que en Santo André hay una gran presión de la actuación de sectores comerciales. Pueden ser positivos, pero hay que buscar también elementos complementarios que aseguren que en los 8 kilómetros del valle, que es una distancia muy grande, pueda haber el emplazamiento de un mix de distintas actividades que asegure la vida económica de esta gran parte del ABC, pero también le dé al grande São Paulo una imagen de futuro que, si seguimos pensando la gran metrópolis solo desde el centro de São Paulo, seguramente nunca va a tener un futuro tan brillante.
Some proposals featured prominently in the projects. Better interconnection between the eastern and western sides of the city. The presence of bridge buildings as a concrete connection between both sides of the railway. The implementation of the proposals along zones, having vegetation and open space along the river. The invention of a solid nucleus, which will trigger off the transformations along the axis. Respect the industries that want to remain active in the city, and the ones that plan to convert their real estate to alternative uses. And respect Santo André's industrial past.
É preciso respeitar essa história para que essa proposta de futuro possa ter vínculos claros, ter raízes na cultura dessa nossa cidade, para que a sua identidade seja reforçada e ampliada. A iniciativa da Prefeitura de Santo André é muito importante nesse sentido, porque pela primeira vez uma prefeitura dessa nossa região metropolitana percebe a potencialidade de um corredor como esse. E a iniciativa privada, que tem tentado encontrar nichos de investimento aqui em nossa cidade, vai poder encontrar em Santo André uma qualidade urbanística que nunca tivemos aqui em São Paulo.
One of the proposals is related to a feasible high-density occupation with an efficient land use but preserving aspects like vegetation, sunlight, ventilation, and acoustic environmental conditions.
Eh bien, au lieu de construire tout le monde à la périphérie, nous donnons une règle très simple qu'il y a un certain pourcentage du périmètre qui doit être non construit. Depuis la rue, on voit l'intérieur de l'îlot. On voit la cour ou le jardin. Vous voyez donc qu'il y a la rue, qu'il y a une autonomie des constructions qui ne sont pas accolées et qu'il y a une liberté d'être plus ou moins haut. Comme je dis, ça c'est une qualité très bonne pour la lumière et la densité et qui permet d'imaginer que la lumière, elle est à peu près facile partout.
These projects were presented in public sessions, and they are being discussed with city representatives, private entrepreneurs, professional planners, and state government. At the same time, the project gains quality and political legitimacy by entering into the academic discussion and by reaching the public through an efficient communications network.
Eu acho que os projetos foram feitos por pessoas que trazem uma bagagem internacional de processos de requalificação de áreas centrais em países da Europa muito parecidas com a região de Santo André. Eu tenho a impressão de que vai ser fundamental esta abertura de novas frentes de desenvolvimento para o mercado imobiliário, inclusive.
O trabalho na busca de uma qualidade de vida melhor, colocando o trabalhador mais perto da sua indústria, mais perto da sua frente de trabalho.
Sei que um projeto como esse gera emprego, porque vai atrair não somente o comércio, mas as indústrias, vai atrair a família, vai unificar um lado e outro para Santo André. E isso também espero que se dê vazão para se resolver os problemas da favela, do trabalhador discriminado, para que todos excluídos se transformem em incluídos.
Que a sociedade como um todo abrace essa ideia deste projeto, que vai ser maravilhoso para a região, e a sociedade, a imprensa, os meios de comunicação, a opinião pública, faça com que haja continuidade administrativa, qualquer que seja a gestão.
Throughout 1999, the municipality will prepare a programmatic synthesis of the four studies, emphasizing the strongest aspects of each one. It will outline some special areas aimed at the implementation of pilot projects within these areas. And this will be the basis for a management of the program based on community participation, legitimacy, and continuity of the process.
Okay. I would like to thank you, the organizers of this symposium, for being here with you, and also I have to apologize for my to start by pointing some of the greater ABC region. Raquel just showed something about that, but Santo André is a municipality. Is a municipality that belongs to the metropolitan region of São Paulo, which has more than 30 municipalities. The most important of them is, of course, the municipality of São Paulo, and belongs to the ABC, the greater ABC region, which is composed by 7 municipalities, which are Santo André, this one, thank you. This is Santo André, and São Bernardo do Campo, São Caetano do Sul, Diadema, Mauá, Ribeirão Pires e Rio Grande da Serra. This region has 2.2 million inhabitants, and the region is a very important restructuring in social, or mainly in economic terms. One of the one of the consequences of this changing is the loss of employment, of industrial employment. Even though in this region you can say that the industrial activity has kept the same level of added value. In terms of employment, the level of employment has decreased very much because of the new technologies, the new way of organizing the industry and so on. So we can see some of these changings. The industrial employment decreases very much, and we have some increase in the tertiary employment, but not enough in order to guarantee, to assure employment of quality for all. Unfortunately, this has an impact on local finance also. And we face new problems with less money, with less funds to solve this kind of problem. It is only a quick illustration. Then I would like to point some initiatives we have nowadays there in the greater ABC region, and especially in the municipality of Santo André. I'd like to talk a little, in the first place, of these initiatives related to all the greater ABC region. The strategic partnership approach of the Council of the Greater ABC region. In the first place, it's important to point that the first institution that put together all the municipalities of the Greater ABC region was the consortium, the intermunicipal consortium. It puts together, as I said, the 7 municipalities. It's a way to try to face the regional problems that obviously can't be solved individually by each of the municipalities. It was in the end of the 1990 when I was for the first time the mayor of Santo André. And we did it together with the other 6 municipalities. After that, we have some problems with the new administrations among 1993 to 1996. But the civil society itself, organized in order to put the regional questions instead of the local governments at that time. So was created the Fórum da Cidadania do Grande ABC, the Forum on Issues of Citizenship of the Greater ABC region. The Forum on Issues of Citizenship is composed by civil society organizations, the entrepreneurial organizations, the worker organizations, the unions, the labor unions, and environmentalists and so on. After that, in 1996, from the regional government, it was originated the idea of a council of the Greater ABC region. It was put in practice only in 1997, at the beginning of 1997, with the new administrations after local election. So we created the council of the Greater ABC region, which has the participation from the regional government of São Paulo, the intermunicipal consortiums, I mean the 7 municipalities, the private sector, labor unions, and the civil society. It's organized by groups of work. It has a coordination, a board of coordination, and the groups of work try to establish regional consensus built around the specific topics like local economic development, social development, environment, and coordination of administrative and tax policies. These working groups led, in the first year of the existence of this council, to 31 recommendations in July of 1997 that had to be worked out in sets of regional agreements, each set having different stakeholders. So, oops. Yeah, so we had the first regional agreement with 9 elements, which was signed in November 1997. It was signed by the entrepreneur, the leaders of the enterprises, the labor unions, the regional government, the governor itself, the 7 municipalities, the 7 mayors, and so on. There are several different issues, among others, regional development, the creation of a regional development agency, storm drainage plan, highway system, literacy campaign, street children vocational training, adaptation of environmental planning and legislation. The relative success of the Council is attracting new partners and new themes that will be strengthen its performance. Car manufacturers and their suppliers, petrochemical industry, and so on. Among others, new themes are competitiveness in car manufacturing, public transportation, technological transfers to small and medium businesses, like incubators, labor market relations, and so on. The foundation of the Regional Development Agency in November, not July, but November, as operational arm of the Council, was one of these agreements that was put in practice, and these development agents will actively seek for international partners too, not only national partners, but international partners too. By the way, I'm the general director of this development agency, regional development agency, which is a NGO. It is composed by 32 institutions, the 7 municipalities, entrepreneurs, labor unions, and so on. I would like to say in the second place that we, in the municipality of Santo André, are trying to make some things that we believe that are our own role in this regional process, because it's possible to define that the economic unit is a regional one and not a municipal one. In the case of the greater ABC region. But we think that Santo André has a role, and we are trying to face our problems, our challenges, in order to contribute with this regional effort. One of these was the project of the Tamanduateí Valley, which you've seen right there, right before here in this film. But we are thinking in the future of the city, in the so-called city of Santo André, city of the future, with several simultaneous initiatives. One of them is this Tamanduateí Valley. One of these initiatives, another of these initiatives is a project in order to combat the social exclusion. And I would like to put some things related to that. That's, in fact, a way in which we try to face the multidimensional situation of exclusion and of poverty, as was said before here. We do believe that the social exclusion is not only an economic fact, but has other dimensions, like the social dimension, the cultural dimension, the urban dimension, and so on. So we're trying in 4 pilot areas, which are favelas, in four favelas of Santo André, work with several integrated programs in order to allow people that live in these favelas to move from a situation of social exclusion to another situation of social inclusion. This group of programs is put here. In our last administration, we already have had the housing and slum upgraded aimed at social inclusion, but we didn't have the other programs that are new, completely new. And we are trying to integrate all those programs with these people in order to combat the social exclusion. So we have a minimum income program, a income and employment generation, including the implementation of a microfinance institution, which is very important for the whole city of Santo André, because of difficult the people have, the entrepreneurs have to get money, get funds from the official financial system. The very high rates of interest we have there in Brazil. And this kind of institution focused on microfinance is able to finance either the formal or the informal activities that were already established there in Santo André. Besides, we have the vocational training and illiteracy campaigns, community health programs, and we are trying to build some indicators on social inclusion and exclusion in order to evaluate the pilot projects and the program as a whole. We're starting the program, but it has, of course, a urban and even an architectural dimension that I didn't bring here, unfortunately. But it's a very important program because we feel that it's not enough to deal with big projects like this Tamanduateí Valley. It's so as important as that to face this kind of problems which are related to the majority of the population of the community. We have other kinds of projects like the transformation of a institution of faculties which are related to the local government, and to transform it into an university which we believe can be strongly related and concerned with the economic and social vocation of the whole region. And we have another important project which it's not here. Which has to do with more than half the area of Santo André, and in fact more than half of the area of ABC region, which is this region. This is Billingsdam, and all the area along the Billingsdam is a watershed protected area, and we now are facing the challenge to build some elements in order to have a new project, a new model of facing this kind of region, which is not a preservation, an absolute preservation of the area, but the environmental conservation of the area. We have to deal with problems, technical problems. We have to deal with them, but above all, we have to work with the legislation, which is not put at this moment in order to turn it possible this kind of sustainable development, which interests to the city of Santo André and the region of ABC, because this region is completely, is partially occupied and without any order. It's part of the illegal city. It's part of this Berlin Wall that was related by Raquel, by Nabil. And it's very important for us turn this area from a problem to a positive asset to the whole region, in special to Santo André. So I have to conclude my remarks here. Unfortunately, I didn't have time because I spoke too slowly, but I had some conclusions of this presentation that I hope I can put in during the debate in order not to Two minutes are not enough. I'll try to do that. Of course, the conclusions were very important, at least for me, because this is only a presentation, and the presentation is always very boring. Okay.
Popular will aqui. Continue.
So let's try.
But in 2 minutes.
So, speaking of the regional council, we believe that we are rediscovering participatory democracy as a method. Council is at the same time a public and non-parastatal sphere. It represents a new model for governance at the local level. The mechanisms of horizontal and vertical coordination, together with the flexibility adopted by the Council, are characteristics in the line with worldwide tendencies. We believe so, at least. The relative success is related with the collective perception of the actors involved that it would not be impossible to implement a regional economic development strategy, despite of globalization and the present macroeconomic framework. As a matter of fact, we really believe that it's possible to build an endogenous regional model of development. based on the whole stakeholders, private and public stakeholders, and all the civil society. Speaking of the Tamandaré Valley, we believe that instead of the rigid, backward-oriented traditional land use planning, the approach of the revitalization of the Tamandaré Valley shows the importance of jointly constructing a view concerning the future role of the strategic vacant areas in the city after economic restructuring, together with professionals, the private sector, and the civil society. And last but not least, the problem of facing the poverty and the social exclusion is, at least in our opinion, very, very important in a whole strategy. I would like to say some things, if you allow me, that are related to other problems. The debate on local strategies of development. I would like to point some things. And in the first place, I would like to emphasize that there are different strategies for local development. For instance, on one hand, a region can try to compete with other regions by the so-called fiscal war. The fiscal war means, of course, the decrease of the regional costs. The regional costs related to fiscal basis, related to labor rights, and so on. But there is another strategy that puts the emphasis on increasing regional advantages. Regional advantages like, for instance, to have in the region research and development institutions, like having a labor force with quality, having in the region quality of life, environmental quality of life, and so on. Several advantages that allow to a region to compete with others without decreasing costs, that of course can't allow a municipality to face the new challenges, the new costs of new services to guarantee quality of life, and another approach that can respect the labor and social rights, because they are very important to keep the internal consumer market of the greater ABC region, which is the third most important consumer market of the country, after São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro only. The other opposition, you can try to compete by building standard urban infrastructure, like convention centers, like shopping centers, highways, and so on, which was a strategy well criticized years ago by David Harvey. But you can also stress an economic strategy focused on local vocations, on local tradition, like did, for instance, the Third Italy, like is doing right away the municipality of San Giovanni in the metropolitan region of Milan in Italy, like is being done in the municipality of Sabadell in metropolitan region of Barcelona, just to quote some examples that are not so known instead of the Third Italy. The region of ABC is trying to get this way of developing the region, and not the first one. We believe that the second strategy is as inclusionary strategy and not an exclusionary like the first one. In the second place, I would like to say here that the liberal speech, the economic liberal speech, which is dominant in Brazil, and parts even from the central government, unfortunately, the liberal speech in Brazil turns social and labor rights into costs, because they think, the liberals, that these kind of costs can't allow the competitiveness of the country, the competitiveness of the region, and so on. Well, we don't believe in it, but it's important to say here that a municipality, a local government, which is committed with the majority of the population, can't only face the problem of the social exclusion itself. It's very important at this time to connect the problem, the economic dimension of the problems, with the social or urban dimensions of the problem. Otherwise, we can inadvertently, unconsciously, we can reinforce the approach of the liberal speech and not solve the whole problems, because maybe you are only practicing the compensatory social policy. The compensatory social policy belongs to the liberal ideology nowadays. That's the meaning of this kind of experiences here, and regional and municipal experiences that I tried to put to you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
No problem. This intervention is pre-drinking. If you remain here, after you are right to drink. Patience, a moment. Excuse me, I have transparency because my English is the worst. And for example, yesterday when I arrived at Kennedy Airport in New York, in the office of American Airlines, in the taxi I prepared my question as, excuse me, I have a prepaid ticket. Is here the office? And the service, excuse me, I don't understand the Spanish. When moral this exposition is not about São Paulo or Santo André. It's absurd. Here there are persons more qualified, but it's only about any ideas, bad or good, but ideas that oriented my collaboration with São Paulo, with Santo André especially, and other cities in these last years. This is the continuity of about the book of local and global, but it's not exactly the same. This English is not good, but is better than my oral my oral language, because it's 50% of me and 50% of dictionary. Yes, it depends. Very quickly, I think in the past, the Egyptians, the physical representation of the city are one circle and one cruz, and a cross, and a cross, and thanks, thank you very much. And what is the meaning of this representation? The city is a place. A place is identities, communities, power, cohesion, social cohesion, culture, etc. And is a flow. Is exchange. You know? And I think is this definition in the Neolithic until today is useful. The city is the exchange of goods, of service, of ideas, etc. And in the actual city, in the actual urbanization process, is a phenomenon not only, but is important phenomenon of the dissolution, fragmentation, privatization of the urban space of the city. The reality, I think, is very dialectic, and also there is the tendency in inverse, the revalorization of the city, for the economic synergies, social cohesion, governance, and I think the most important question, the general question about the urbanism, is the emergence, the explicitation is correct? Thank you. Of the values, the objective, the instruments. Recently is Monday, in a colloque in Toronto organized for the World Bank. I participate in this colloque together with Michael Cohen, and is he and me, the question in the urban policies, in the urbanism, is not the competitiveness, is not the functionalism about any question, is the explicitation, but what model of life proposed at the society? What are the implicit values? For example, the question is not the safety. All people is according with the safety, but what safety? What safety? For he in New York, the safety and the political of Giuliani is the safety for you, for me, but not for the Latinos in general, not for the Afro-Americans. It depends. You know. The safety, the instrument is element of the conception of the safety of the housing. For example, what is more important for the safety in a neighborhood, the policemen or the students? Because the experience of Barcelona is the presence of the students in the old city, in the very heavy, the old city of Barcelona in the recent past, is very important for the safety. Is another value about the safety, the students or police. It's not the same. It's not the same. Excuse me. I am imperialist. What is the challenge for the city of the city today? I think it's very important the dialectic inclusion-exclusion is novel. All cases, the housing, but the housing today is very big problem. For example, the Grands Ensemble in France is the Grands Ensemble in France is example of the cumulative phenomenon, the exclusion. Exclusion is the in French is the les sans, without papers, without centrality, without work, without family, because of family monoparental, etc. No? In Latin America, for me, is very very strong the privatization of the housings of the neighborhoods, the privatization, the ghettos for middle class, ghettos for high class, ghettos for poor, etc. The commerce, historical, the commerce is element of the social cohesion of the and what is in this moment the shopping centers for middle class and camelois and ambulantes, street vendors for the poor class, you know, and because the street is occupied for the street vendors, and the middle class the street is dangerous. In Brazil, in Venezuela, in Colombia, except Buenos Aires, Argentina, the middle class is no, the street is dangerous because it's the street vendors. But it's when the people is in the street is not dangerous. It's when it's empty the street is dangerous. But it's the situation. The culture, for example, in I don't know is generally, but in many cities of Latin America is very curious and very negative the development of the analphabetism. Illiteracy. Argentina in the past was a country 10% educated. It's not the case today in Buenos Aires and other big cities. And for is the more elemental question in the culture is other aspects. For example, in this moment I live in New York, but it's many Latinos in New York, and my progress in English is very slow. And is the society no informated, you know, is incredible about when the OTAN has little mistakes in Kosovo, 20 civils, this, etc. As the New York Times, the others, nothing. But the New York Times is 3 or 4 days after a very little mistake here, etc. No, recently is a very big manifestations in Philadelphia for in the east and San Francisco in the west about la condena a muerte. The Mumia Abu Jamal, a historical leader of Panteras Negras, the painters, the Black Panthers, and this manifesto is in Philadelphia with 30, 40, 50,000 people, and other manifestations, I think, in Paris, in Rome, etc. Nothing in the journal. Nothing. Nothing. My students in the Pratt Institute, nothing. Nobody knew not the manifestation, but what is this person? You know? And for the United States has is important in this world, you know. I think. And yesterday, one student architect in my architect, because this is postgraduate, asking me, what is Brasilia? Brasilia? Yes, Brasilia and Brazil is the same. No, exactly. No. And I answer, what is for you the capital of Brazil? Capital of Brazil? Has capital of Brazil? Yes, also. And no, is but other cases today, for example, the transportation, I think in the big cities, the mobility, the right to mobility is a very democratic right for the people. Is the possibility for education, for the use the service, for to find work, etc. The transportation is very exclusion. For example, in Bogota, 90% of investment is in the roads for the cars, and 10% in public collective transportation. 90% of population use the collective transportation, 10% the cars. Exactly the inverse. It's very usual, the violence in the city, etc. And I asked, what is when I have a problem, a conflict, for aggression, for a denunciation? In the justice palace, no? And what is the time for to go of the south? The popular population is in the south to the center. 2 hours, 2 hours and a half. It's not a good mechanism for resolve the conflicts. The formal method, you know. The communication is. I remember in the conference of Istanbul, Jorge Wilhelm. In the inauguration, said, in the actual world is the people, the difference between the people is in internet and the people is out internet. It's a metaphor, but it's a good metaphor, I think, you know. The globalization, in the big cities, the modern cities, the competitive in cities, is a tendency is the oriented the investment in fixed capital for the activities globalized. But the activities globalized is the 10, 15, 20% maximum for the employment and for the product in the region. And the activities very important for the employment, for the salary, for the social life is not interesting for these big. And the question of what is the role of the big projects, the big infrastructure is very important, because is in the tendency is possible these big projects oriented only for the activities in the globalization is the exclusion for many people, many territory, and is a despilfarro. The waste, the capital the fixed capital of the past, you know. The city is in theory an opportunity, urban freedoms, etc. But really, it's really this opportunity, and I propose very quickly. How minutes for?
One.
It depends. Yo soy negociador, de negotiation. It's an agreement, agreement between gentlemen. Once? 10 minutes. Good. Very good. I think it's not usual to the expression, but I think it's important to build the territory. The territory is not a date of the past. And actually the significant territory is not the city, is not the nation, is the urban regional system. It's not commercial, it's competitive in a city, it's a system of the cities, a system of centralities, and it's very important also the situation in the not only in the big metropolitan region, but in the big axis. For example, in the future, I think is not region of São Paulo is a very important element of the triangle São Paulo, Rio, Belo Horizonte in the big axis of the Mercosur, Valparaíso, Buenos Aires, etc. Montevideo, São Paulo, etc. The banana in Europe, the banana London, Milan, and for the Ramstad, Rhin, etc. The equivalent is this other banana in the Mercosur, and the head of this banana is this triangle. It's not, but it's a very complex system, but this tendency is in the sense of the dominance of the flows about the place, and when and the responsibility of the planners is not only the regulation of the flows, but is the construction of the place, To build territory is a strategy. Is very fashion the strategic planning, but the first objective one strategic planning is the definition of new territory, and in this new territory is very important a system of the centers, But for example, recently in Barcelona was Ramon Barre, the former chief government of France and mayor of Lyon. And in a dinner with Pasquale Maragall and others, and me, Barre said, Lyon and Barcelona is the same metropolitan region. But is axis important, not a dependence. I think is very useful to change the ship and not to see the questions with a vision of hierarchy. Between the powers, it's very important the contractual relations between the powers, national government, or federal government, state, regional, local, etc. And between the cities, when Barcelona in your strategic planning the definition is the big region, big urban region with Valence, Toulouse. Is not the intention is not we are the center of this region. No, we are one center in this region. And in the metropolitan region, I think, I am of Barcelona, I think it's very important for Barcelona the alternative center in Sabadell, in Terrassa, or in Gerona. And recently I have a discussion about the actually responsibility of the urbanism in Barcelona is a problem, the development of these other cities. No, it's very good for Barcelona, these other cities, the development of these other cities, because for the functionalism, for the competitiveness of the old centers needs new centers, because it's the congestion and the precedent, No. Bueno, yes. And I think is for the construction of the territory is useful the articulation between opportunities and objective. If you don't use the opportunities, it's very difficult. It's possible also, but opportunities is not. It's possible a big event, Olympic Games, but it's possible opportunity because in the cities. The obsolescence of the all ports, all industry, etc., is opportunity also. It's not necessary always the big occasion. No, the opportunity exists always. The opportunity exists always, but it is necessary idea, a global project for the city, because it's not possible to use efficiently the opportunities if this is not this global vision. For example, in the case of Barcelona, the localization of Olympic Village was possible because there were the idea of waterfront in the east of the city for the balance the development of the west in the city. If you know, it's because for the Olympic Games was very difficult the deslocalization, but and I think the role of the public administration of the local power of the public urbanism is not to follow the dynamics of the private agents. Is the balance of the dynamic, and after attraction, a new dynamism. But in the very, not always, but it's very frequent in this historical moment. This conception, the urbanism, the public action is the follow the private action, And finally, in what is the conclusion? What is possible the conclusion when I am not arrived at conclusion? No. In another occasion, the second part of this exposition is about this question. The challenge is the construction, the city on the city, because not the city on the or when the city is finished. And for example, there is a perversion of the big infrastructures. In the past, for the change of the old cities for the modern city in the 19th century and before, so the conception of the ring roads is a urban conception of the ring roads. And in the 60s, 70s, and also 80s in many cities, the highways is not an element for the construction of the city. Is the element is marginal to the city, or element of fragmentation of the city. Is the highway is the city is finished, and with others colleagues, etc. I worked in the conception of the perimetral, the ring road, no? The ring road, the Bogota, and the idea of the local authorities in the origin is no. Here the city is finished. Here, it's finished today, but in 5 years, Bogota is a city had 1 million in 40 years ago, 7 millions today. Okay. A ring road is not the end of the city. It's a new element for the structuration of the city, and I think is important. The question is how is the system, the method for the construction, the city on the city, and I don't expose this method. It's suspense, but only the summary of the questions. All centers and new centralities. The role of the mobility and the visibility is very important in the city. The visibility of any element of the city. When one citizen is not recognized for the others, when one area is not like is not visible for the others, is a not city, is a not citizen in part. No? The mobility is and visibility and monumentality in any part. The continuity of the urban tissues, for example, what is in the new scale of the city, what is the elements of continuity, the physical elements of continuity there, no? The mixture of the big projects. The big project is not possible for one function. In urbanism, I think, is always necessary resolve 2, 3, 4 problems with one action, because it's the guarantee of the evolution of the change the user. Because the user change, the social user, the economic user, and the infrastructure, the model, the tissue remain is possible, no? And for this is the mechanism of civic participation. Conclusion, I think, is a moment the renewal of the urbanist culture, and in this renewal is important the political action, is important the civic participation, but I think it's very important also the autonomy and the intellectual of the urbanistics, and the planner is not sufficient to say, my project is the project of the mayor, or is the project of the social association. My project is also, but is also the project. I think in this project because in this historical moment is necessary to change the urbanist conception. Thank you. 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Okay, there is not much time, so I will be very quick. I should say that I feel rather a fraud here because I've never been in Brazil. I know Brazil only from meeting a lot of friends from Brazil and teaching students and examining dissertations from Brazil, including some really wonderful work. So, but I'm very pleased to be doing this. This afternoon, this last meeting, to me, is very, very inspirational. It's very makes me feel stronger to find that there are people in the world who can both analyze what is happening and prepare some actions and do the actions. And this is something which in England after the last 20 years is quite difficult to remember. So it's very, very stirring and valuable. One thing which to me was very important in the whole presentation was the importance of analyzing what your instruments are doing. And when Raquel was speaking about the effect of the zoning system in the city on the distribution of rent between rich and poor, what kind of city it produces, what kind of distribution of income and wealth it does, it made me just feel very envious that we should only understand here what we do with our green belts and our conservation areas and our this enormous sophisticated apparatus of control instruments, all of which in the end become appropriated through very subtle markets as instruments for the redistribution of rent and wealth. And not just the location where social exclusion and social polarization just happen to be set, like a theater, but part of the machinery which excludes. Part of the process which makes some people richer, healthier, live longer, enjoy a better environment, and other people are excluded or squashed into the same space at a different density in these things. And these are things which in England we are not understanding at all. We are running our cities on the basis of some shared crazy assumptions which are very unscientific, and I envy you. Anyway, this was very, very stimulating and interesting. The second thing which I thought is very important is that there is a kind of danger which was mentioned in the discussion earlier this afternoon, that if you talk a great lot about participation and the potentialities of participation democracy, you could almost begin to believe, and somebody asked the question, well, if the people have so much understanding and potential power and capacity to change things, why do you need anything else? Well, it was clear this afternoon, I think, what you need is two things, at least. You need capital, because the thing about being poor is that you have no capital. Somebody else has got the capital, and you have to get it. It sounds very elementary, but it's just an old economist talking. And this is what you were talking about, in a way, how to redistribute the capital and appropriate some of it back for the people from whom it was taken. Secondly, you have to influence public policy and change public policy. And that was very interesting to see how in Santo André you managing to do both those things. But it leaves me with a very strong question that I don't exactly understand. That you've got a city which is very polarized, very big extremes of rich and poor and so on. But suddenly in your municipality, in San André, you can make a kind of great, what's the word? Consortium of interest between everybody. Suddenly the capitalists and the workers and the citizens and everybody is united in a common interest. Now, is this a very special situation that you find only in a very deindustrialized, impoverished part of the city? Or what? What are the conditions where you can make this magic solution? because looking around here, I don't see very many of these situations available to us. And maybe that is an important thing to discuss on the basis of what was discussed. I can see that from Barcelona there were some very interesting examples of places where you can make these common interests. But the situation in São Paulo is clearly much more polarized and acute. So I'm just ignorant and would like an answer on this question. Thank you very much.
I think this, in fact, is a very good question and points for discussion. I know that I'm sure you were all extremely tired at the end of the day, but if we can dedicate just a bit of time to discuss before we close the day, I'm sure that we have, with the three presentations and the comments of Michael, a series of issues, from questions of conceptions of urbanism, institutional questions, political questions, etc., and also connection with questions of design and design. So I'm sure that many of you will be going to ask questions and make comments. Yeah. Just to have a sense, who is it? Oh, there, quite a few. Yeah. Okay, so there as well. Okay. What exactly? I was going to say, rather than to start a ping pong, perhaps what we should do is to have a sense of all the questions, so that then the panelists can comment. Can do. Where is the mic?
I think this raises, the big question we'll have in this meeting. Is possible a coalition between capital, certain social classes, in terms of having a new cycle of accumulation that could be not exclusionary like it has been right now, until right now? This is the question. I think so. And I think that the region of Santo André is especially has the vocation for this because of his strong industrial base. It's because I believe that this coalition had to be constructed among the productive capital, that is mainly the industrial capital, the middle classes that are losing with the model that are going on throughout the world, and be labor, mainly the organized labor. Is what we are trying to put here as a point is that we are going to reproduce in a new form, and we don't know which would be this new form of the coalition that has been worked from the end of the World War II until the 70s. The social-based coalition. I think this is the Europe are discussing now. The elections that have been made here in England, in France, in Italy, not in Spain, but even in Portugal, are going in this direction. In Brazil, we had the esperanza, the hope that could be happened when Fernando Henrique Cardoso has been elected. but it didn't happen in that way. I think we have to elect a new government to try to go to this direction. But we can try to make something regional in the metropolitan region in São Paulo. And this project points out to this direction. I think so. Well, this is, I think, is a very, very big issue. It depends on how you see the capitalism system. I would say that I don't see it having a suicide vocation, and the exclusionary results that they are putting in all the world is something that could explode this system. Somebody says, well, let it explode. Perhaps we have something better after that. But I don't agree with this optimistic result of this explosion. I prefer the way of negotiating with the part of capital that needs the increase of the market for having the possibility of a new cycle of accumulation. I will stop right now because I think it's a big issue. A lot of people would say something about.
Hi. Now, it's just very interesting the way Raquel started the presentation, saying that, asking if the regulations are enough to minimize or to avoid social exclusion. And I think this, and apparently she said it's not enough, and now we have to find other ways to tackle this problem in the city. And I think one big issue is the role of the state on how to manage this whole process together with the whole sectors of society. Unfortunately, I think if looking at the experience of São Paulo, actually we are taking conclusions about non-completed experience, because as we know, all the whole set of legislation were not approved. Many of the ideas for São Paulo couldn't be really implemented. And there is a question of very serious questions, which I think generates this new view of intervening in the city, which is the confidence that people that are running the city should have from all sectors of society to really be able to implement or to tackle social exclusion. And I think the role of a big project that is now became so fashionable, I think the main role of this big project is exactly attract all sectors of society. But as it was said before, I think the project itself, it's also not enough. I think behind the project, there is a whole set of measurements that governments and the society had to implement to really tackle the problem of social exclusion. For instance, the Santo André mayor was listing some of them, and apparently, for instance, some measurements that apparently seem to be smaller than a big project, but perhaps they are as difficult as the big project to be implemented, such as, for instance, open the opportunity for finance informal sector. This is quite a hot issue and a difficult one. And Raquel, just to put my point, in the beginning Raquel said that tried to explain what they were trying to do in São Paulo as politicizing planning, yeah? And I don't think that this new kind of intervention, it's avoiding this challenge of politicizing planning, because anyway, you have to find ways to link the structural measurements to really tackle social exclusion with the big project, which is the interest of the high capital. So there is still a big challenge, which I think it's not this collision of the high capital and people in need of receiving communities in need of upgradings and et cetera, actually not hiding the priorities the government should take to tackle the social exclusion.
Okay, I'll be very brief. I found the exhibition of the Santo André very compelling, and I'm making this question as a kind of different branch of architect from the school. I'm not like, from Housing and Urbanism, but like from a rather formalist point of view, in which the optimistic point of view, this wonderful moments of optimism and understanding between people have occurred in history before and have ended really badly before because of the results. Most of the time, the results are really different from the projections, and actually the techniques used to create the projects, which come from a range of multidisciplinary people which are working together, from laws to diagramming, they reflect the very issues sometimes they are trying to avoid. For instance, if you use in your technique superimposition is going to be there taking place in your project further on. If you're using deformation, that's going to take place. If you use erasure, that means one thing on top of the other, that will be transferred to your project. And if what I'm trying to accomplish is that in terms of language, you have this semantical transference from your technique of project to your to the final end of the project. In this sense, what would be the technique of inclusion in diagramming techniques and projects that sincerely today, I mean, in terms of computer views, this is still a diagramming from an heritage from the 15th century Renaissance, and something will happen in this vision of urbanity and space, so why does this new inclusion, doesn't it need a new way of representing and expressing urban design and expressing larger projects?
Sorry, just very quickly. So just very quickly, in the Tamanduate Valley, it's partly deindustrialized valley, which are introducing these new commercial uses, improving the environment. How do you do that without increasing values such that you lose some of the existing industry?
I just wonder if you I just wonder if you legalize the favelas in São Paulo by some planning tools, because legalizing some such kind of illegal housing or informal economic activities sometimes play a balancing role in the social and economic system of a city. In Turkey, the planners innovated some kind of planning tools like amendments, a sort of rehabilitation plans, and some mercy laws. And with these tools, the social exclusion in the city is decreased. The social inequalities is decreased as well in economic terms, of course, and the fragmentation, maybe social mobility in economic terms is increased. I mean, we are still talking about regulations in planning. When you think about the global economic forces, we are talking about deregulations, and when we think about the low-income classes in the cities, we are talking about regulations. If there is an advantage in deregulating the activities, why don't we apply this to the low-income people in the cities?
Okay. So very briefly, I have some comments from the panelists on the questions, not least the question raised by Michael and commented by Candido on the possibility of generating consensus in such a polarized context, such as São Paulo and Santo André, as opposed to the Barcelona context.
First of all, the question of my first question in my talk, which was, is it possible to create urban planning tools to face territorial exclusion? My conclusion is that to recreate planning tools is not enough, but it's absolutely necessary. And this is first step. It's a kind of, for me, it's a kind of to establish a new 10 commandments of planning in polarized society and rephrase it totally. And I think this is very important, and this has to do also with the link between a new strategy of control, which is not deregulating, which is building a new strategy of regulating. Maybe harder, maybe more focused, less decrees and laws and details, more open to diversity, but very, very clear and totally focused on the majority and the way of constructing space of the majority. So I think it's very, very